Okay, folks, thank you for joining. This session is being recorded and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel. If you don't want to record it, you may want to drop off now. Kumar, floor is yours. Take it away.
Thanks, Naveed. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Kumar Alam Raju. I'm a cloud solutions architect in Microsoft. Today's topic will be on Azure OpenAI on your data. The first half of the presentation will be, just give an overview of the solution, and I'll spend the last second half on giving you a hands-on demo. So this is some sort of most of us are aware, if not, uh, Microsoft has formed a strong partnership with OpenAI to collaborate on the development of artificial intelligence technologies, right? This partnership aims to accelerate the development of AI systems and bring the benefits of AI to more people, right? As part of this partnership, Microsoft and OpenAI have agreed to work on several key areas, including, developing AI technologies. That's what OpenAI has been doing in the last few years, coming up with ChatGPT, one of this a famous model. But since then, they have been releasing a lot of other technologies for multimodals, vision, chat, and everything, right? But then building similarly from Microsoft side, building an AI computing platform. So Microsoft and OpenAI are working together uh, to give access to the developers so that they can easily access and use advanced AI technologies or models, right? Yeah. And then last but not least, the goal is to accelerate the development and use of advanced AI technologies in a secure way with focus on making AI accessible to developers and organization and everything. So this is what the mission of OpenAI as well as the Microsoft. Okay. And throughout this process, we continue to offer more services for customers to use Azure Cloud so that they can securely build, develop, and deploy these chatbots or some of these AI technologies in Azure Cloud. So now, some of us may question why Azure OpenAI when we already have an OpenAI, right? So when customers use Azure OpenAI, whatever you use, whether it's inputs or completions or code and everything, or training data, they are not available to anyone else. It's like multi-tenant secure cloud, right? But if you are a customer X, your data is not accessible or visible to any other customers in Azure, right? Unlike other open source technologies. So when you use Azure OpenAI, this data is only stays available in your Azure tenant, in your Azure subscription, right? And this is not used, although we have a strong partnership, it's not available to OpenAI or not used to train their future AI models, right? And nobody, including Microsoft, will not use to use your data to fine tune your models, not at all. It's mainly that stays in your tenant. It's the same thing, right? Whatever resource that you deploy in Azure, that stays in your tenant, no one has access to it. The same thing goes for Azure OpenAI, right? OpenAI is pretty much open source. Anyone can use it, access it. But when it comes to Azure OpenAI, it's secure by default. It's only accessible to you. When I say you, that could be you, your company. It stays in your tenant. So these are some of the advantages of considering Azure OpenAI instead of just considering the OpenAI model. I think OpenAI is good to explore, to create your own personal account and play with it. But as part of the, if you wanted to really inherit some of the features that Microsoft already provides in terms of security at a global scale, uh, getting the compute on demand and whatnot, That's where you will benefit from Azure OpenAI. Because to run an AI models, you need big compute that could be in a GPUs and a whatnot, right? And they are available mainly on the Azure cloud platform, right? It's not simply developing an application that's not good, but you need to run these AI models at scale, and that's where you can benefit from the Azure OpenAI. So, like any other, whenever we embrace some new technologies, we often hear a lot of these buzzwords, right? For example, when the cloud computing became very popular, you might have heard something like pay as you go, or especially when it comes to networking, we say ingress and egress, right? So those are some of the buzzwords that we heard a lot when the cloud computing took over. Similarly, with AI, we started hearing some of these buzzwords coming in hand. One of the thing is hallucination, right? So what does exactly it means, right? In the context of large language models, and hallucination kind of refers to a model, where it generates or predicts a content that is not based on actual input or training data, right? But rather on the model's own workings or biases. What do we mean? It's a generative AI, right? So any model was generated on a certain data. As OpenAI continues to release these new models, for example, uh, uh, ChatGPT, you know, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4, or whatnot. So they were all trained on a particular data set. So for example, what I mean by that is, so for example, if you guys see this, let me show you. So if you see, GPT-2 was trained up to 2019, right? Similarly, if you see, this was trained up to October. So, and then this is what you will continue to see. But if you ask ChatGPT to give me a data of 2024, 2025, it won't be able to generate. So then what it does is it sometimes it tries to, it could politely say, hey, I don't know this data, or it tries to give you some incorrect data, based on providing some bias. So that's what is called hallucination. So you will see this a lot, especially in the AI world, right? Now you might be heard about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So what exactly it means? It's essentially uh, an approach that typically we use in the context of large language models, with an informational retrieval techniques to improve the quality and relevance of your generated text. So what do you expect actually if you are working in an organization and if you ask a question or you are chatting with a chatbot or something, you wanted the data to be provided in the context of what makes sense to you. For example, let's say you developed a HR chatbot and you asked, hey, give me my some employee benefits in Microsoft or in your organization. So you want the data to be in the context of Microsoft or your organization, not from someone else. So retrieval augmented generation is where that gives you a context generated data, right? Similarly, you will also see a grounded. So these kind of words go in a hand in hand. You will see RAG or maybe grounded data. But essentially, whenever we see grounded data, it's not really on the ground, but essentially it's giving you a real based on the facts, and it gives you where it actually pulled up, right? Because you wanted to know where this data came from. And as long as you know the data came from authorized sources, at least you'll believe, yes, it came from my organization or it came from an authorized source, right? So you wanted to make sure whatever the data provided by these large language models, it is indeed real, right? Not something that was made out of the blue. Uh, and then it is actually verified with a source. And you do not want to doubt the answer, or you do not want to make it unambiguous, right? So these are some of the things that you always focus on when you build these large language models. You do not want it to be hallucinated, but you want it to provide something meaningful, something grounded, right? Have you guys heard these words a lot in the AI technologies? Just a curiosity question. If not, this is what, and in fact, there are more. Obviously, I do not want to, include everything, but these are some of the things that we continue to hear a lot. One is RAG, that is giving you a context-aware data instead of making it something on the fly. Because generative AI means obviously it is generating on the fly, not trying to retrieve based on the history, right? But when it generates the data, you wanted to make sure it does provide data that is meaningful, that's not ambiguous, that is providing some biased data. Okay, so now whenever we say Azure OpenAI on your data, what exactly we are talking about is uh, instead of generating some data on the fly, we will actually connect or ingest your data that is coming from your input sources, right? And I already talked about grounded data, which is kind of comes by default whenever you use Azure OpenAI on your data. And then you also wanted to make sure you can securely connect and access from your, let's say, your on-premise data center. That's where the Azure OpenAI can provide it. If you use OpenAI, it's all you will be accessing on a public data points, right? But let's say you are working on some sort of a confidential data that you do not want it to be exposed. You only want it to come from your private network. That's where customers use site-to-site VPN or express route with Azure. So that's where you can use Azure OpenAI on your data. And most importantly, when you use all these things, you can simply deploy this as an app service as a co-pilot, and which I'll show you in my demo. How easy it is to kind of give you a low code, no code, which will help customers to get started, but obviously they can continue to customize it, right? So as part of this hands-on demo, what we will do is I'll show, again, it all depends on the requirements, how we are trying to build your application. But three things that we need as a starting point is we need Azure OpenAI, we need AI search, formerly known as cognitive services in Azure, and then we need an Azure storage to store the source data or input data, right? Because that's where you will be using to generate these data from the large language models, right? And then I'll show you in the demo, you know, how are you going to index the data into AI search and chat with your data, right? And finally, we will. There is anytime we talk about security, networking, there's always an extra work that we all have to do to make it more secure. So how we are going to use these private endpoints for all these Azure services to make it more secure, so that it's not really accessible to all the customers. Okay, so these are some of the things that we are going to do. So the first thing we are going to do is actually let me. Uh, so this is a screenshot of Azure OpenAI Studio. So typically, what happens is you will be able to select the input data sources. It could be that you can upload data, or you could uh, pre-stage the data in an Azure storage account. That's what I was referring to as a starting point. But you could also be scraping the data from some of these, let's say, internal SharePoint sites or internal websites that are only accessible in your data center, right? Or you have some data coming from Cosmos DB. So these are the input sources that we support today, but I'm sure we will be supporting more data sources down the line. But this is what you see typically today in Azure OpenAI Studio. All right. So let me get to my hands-on demo. So to simulate the customer's use case, what I did was I secured my environment with a private endpoints, and then I provisioned a VM so that I can access to it. So this is my an Azure portal. Start here and then search for Azure OpenAI. Hope you all can still see my screen. Let me know. So this is Azure OpenAI. So the first thing we are going to do is create an Azure OpenAI in your subscription or tenant. So as always, we need a subscription, a region, and a resource group. So wherever you want to deploy, whether it's in EMEA or Asia Pac or in Americas, wherever it is. So we'll come with some name. So this is where you will have to decide. Right now, this is a PaaS service, right? So by default, it's a public endpoint. It's accessible to everybody. It doesn't mean that people can just play with it, but it's still a HTTPS, a TLS and 1.2. But most of the times, and the customers wanted to disable the public access and securely connect it. But so by default, we kind of uh, create the service and start locking down the network, right? And the tags and everything. So I will not be creating one, but I have already created an Azure OpenAI service. So this is what it's going to look like. So once you provision Azure service, and then we also need AI search. So if you see in the Azure portal, you can create an AI search instance. So why do we need AI search? We need it to, it's a uh, information retrieval system to index your data so that it's actually uh, retrievable or sent to the large language models, right? So again, as always, there is no scientific here. You choose a resource group, Azure region, and then give a name, pricing tier, and all those things. So I have already pre-provisioned it before the demo. So this is my Azure search. Now, as I said, three things that we need as a starting point. We need a storage account, which I already provisioned it, and this is my input data. I have some source files that I was testing with it. So these are some of the documents that I was using to chat with my chat bot or app service, right? So I already pre-staged it, but you can always upload the data on the time too. I think you can upload it um, directly when you in the AI Studio, which I'll show you shortly. But if you have tons of data, like hundreds of files or thousands of files, it's a recommended practice to pre-stage the data. So now once the AI service is provisioned, you just come here. There's an option to go to Azure OpenAI Studio, right? So this is what you'll see here. So I'm in the AI Studio right now, right? So this is the interface of AI Studio. So the first thing you will do is, this is a what do I call? This is AI Studio is a playground that gives you a head start, but ideally it should not be used for production applications. And I'll show you how we are going to use for production. So this is some sort of a playground that will allow you to initially test it out to make sure you are getting the right data of your choice and to play with the different deployments. So if you see here, you can deploy, different chat GPT versions. You can use 3, 3.5, 4, and all those things. So, and we'll continue to add more models. Recently, we have added GPT-4o, which is the latest model that OpenAI released a few weeks ago, right? So for today's demo, I'm using a GPT-4 version. Um, and then what you can also do is when it comes to the chat. So today's presentation is focused on add your data. So this is where you will be playing with it. So here, if you are not going to use add your data, then you can chat with a public interface. Right? For example, you could say, what's the weather today, or give me some information about politics or anything. But that's not what we are interested in. We are interested in your in your own data. So here's where you are going to use add your data. Then you are going to select your input sources. So as I mentioned, you can scrape the data from public URLs. Of course, you will be mainly using for intranet URLs that are accessible in your network, or you can upload the data. You can use blob storage or AI search. So I was referring to this one. So you have data in your Azure storage. You're going to select your storage account. You're going to select your container. You are going to select your AI search instance. So these are the three things that we need as a starting point. So that's why I was telling you we need an Azure OpenAI instance, we need an AI search, and we need a blob storage as starting point. And then here we are going to give an index name. For example, I'm going to give today's date is June 8th, right? So this could be any friendly name. So what you can do is you can set this on a recurring basis, like an hourly, because if your input data is keep on changing or uploading every few hours, then you can do that. But let me select once. So in Azure AI search, we have a lot of technologies like plain search, vector search, semantic search, which I have plans to talk in a future sessions. But in the interest of time, I will not be talking about different search technologies available in Azure AI search, right? And then select an embedding model, which is deployed already in my AI instance. So this is what I was referring to. You can use a vector search or a semantic search or a hybrid semantic. So it's a long read. You're welcome to take a look, but this is something that I plan to do, how AI search is way ahead of other competitive cloud offerings in terms of information retrieval system. Okay. For today's demo, I'm just going to use a vector and you can chunk the data how you wanted to chunk it, right? And then what happens is how you want to authenticate. You want to use a managed system identity or API keys, whatever it is. So once you go through this wizard, and you can always do all these things via Python SDKs or however your REST APIs, however you wanted to do. But this is a summary screen. And then once you're done with it, it will start indexing your data. So it will take some time. So if the input data is like hundreds, thousands of files, it's going to take a while. But my input data is very small. So what I did was I have already deployed it yesterday because this will take some time. So I'm already, so now what I can do is once the data is indexed, if you see here, I have already indexed it, so I can just play with it, right? So this is my input data, for example. As you could see here, these are some of the files that I have. So let's see, for example, in this case, so you wanted to understand what are the responsibilities of a chief operating officer. So let's say you want to chat with it. Um, so what it does is it is actually retrieving the data from the source data that you have selected, right? This is related to your company. Of course, this is just Contoso. Then what it also does is it is actually giving a, this is what I mean by grounded data. See, it clearly gives you where it retrieved the data from this. So you're always assured, yes, this data is authenticate. It is actually coming from your input sources. And then you can, for more information, you can always go and look, right? Similarly, I have some lot of technologies, right? Um, so I wanted to, chat with, for example, virtual fitness program.
Kumar, we have 4 more minutes, man.
Yes, yeah,
Just like
I'm
that.
pretty much done. So this is what it is. Thanks, Navid, for reminding me. So you'll always see. Then once you're done with it, we are giving you an option of deploying it to. You can deploy this as a Copilot, or you can deploy as an Azure App Service. Okay, so you can always do this. You can give a name, subscription, pricing plan, and then you're done with it. So yesterday, I have already deployed an app service because I know it takes time. So if you see here, and I have deployed an app service yesterday. It's the same interface. So if you see, So, so these are some of the things that, so as you see, remember I was talking about hallucination. So AI generated content could be incorrect, but then you wanted to make sure you also provide references, which means grounded data, and you are chatting with your own data. So these are it's going to be. Now I want to tell you one last thing. I said securely connecting. So if you see, I fully locked down my environment. So if you see Azure OpenAI, if you see, I have locked down my environment. So these are not a publicly accessible, and I created private endpoints. Similarly, if you see my Azure AI search, and you go to the networking, so again, I disabled it. I created a private endpoint. Same is true with the storage account. So there is some extra work that you have to do. But once you have all these things done, you can securely connect from your on-premise data center. The data is owned to you, not shared with any other customers, any other tenants. It's completely secure. This is what we mean by Azure OpenAI on your data. And then last but not least, Microsoft has recently put together a great, AI learning hub that we are asking all customers to, or any developers or anybody to kind of take a look at it. So please take advantage of this. There's a lot of learning modules and everything. So that's pretty much it. Azure OpenAI on your data is what you will be securely connecting from your on-premise to chat on your data. So that's pretty much it. And Naveed, I'm on time. Happy to answer any questions you have.
No, thank you, Kumar. That's very useful. I learned something today. Folks, please feel free to ask if you have any questions. I know we are right on time, so
One other thing I want to mention is we have put together a comprehensive document on how customers can securely use Azure OpenAI on your data. So as I mentioned, there is some work as a starting point. This is done by the networking team in your organization to make sure, how, creating a VNet and create configuring private endpoints and fully locking down the environment. So these are some of the things that you all have to do, some additional rollback access controls that you have to give so that only authorized people can access an AI index and all those things. So that's pretty much it. And then finally, we can create a web app that's authenticated only by your employees and everything.
any questions, folks, please feel free to type in the chat or open your mic and ask.
Yeah, only one query I have.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, so generally some of the modules are available on other maybe area, right? Region. Okay. So is there
Yes.
any impact on latency? Because we are developing one of the application and it is available only in Sweden region. So how we can,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Azure OpenAI is obviously an evolving space. It needs to be uh, deployed wherever the high performance compute is there, like GPUs and everything. So we will continue to make Azure OpenAI or the models accessible pretty much in all Azure regions. But I know what you are saying. Azure OpenAI is not available in all the regions today, or maybe some of these latest models. So to answer your question, yes, if Azure OpenAI is in one region and the other dependent service in another region, you will have to pay for intra-region traffic. That's the way it is today, but we will continue to make these models available pretty much in all the regions. But again, it's a matter of time before we make these available in all Azure regions. That's more of some sort of a networking charges that we have to incur the additional cost. But uh, I wish I have a good answer, but yeah, so we will have to have Azure OpenAI models available pretty much in all Azure regions. It may not be today, but that's the goal.
Any other questions,
And
folks?
maybe this is out of curiosity. So, as you deployed that app service, okay. So I also deployed that app
Yes.
services, okay.
Uh-huh.
But maybe I can actually download code and enhance myself. But is it
Yes,
any
yes,
possibility or
yeah.
any plan that we can have similar as ChatGPT where we can store our informations and we can retrieve that? Definitely, we can use our Azure resources to store the information. But any
Yeah.
plan to enhance that app?
So So our engineering team has put together a lot of Azure OpenAI samples as a starting point, and then customers can take this code and then customize it as you see it fit, right? But the goal is instead of asking customers that you will have to write a lot of code, so this is a no code experience, right? And then when you deploy this. It develops an app service, but you could also use a lot of samples that we already have it available. Now, in terms of will we enhance it, customize it? I think a yes or no, because these are developed for customers' consumption as a starting point. But if there's a huge customer demand to use it, then maybe they'll enhance the code. But essentially, whatever is available in GitHub is kind of open source, and we are asking customers to just use it and play with it, and then use it at your own risk, kind of thing, right? But if you have a specific need where you think you like to see it, definitely by all means, forward it to the product team through your you know, whether it's CSA or whoever they are covering your account, definitely our engineering team might take a look at it and enhance the samples.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the gentlemen, I was just looking at it. He put together, just this thing. There's a Medium page that I was looking at yesterday. So he put all the stuff. So there's a lot of people. Yeah. So this is where Azure OpenAI samples that we have. And if you think this doesn't really fit to your needs, definitely our engineering team might look at it and see what more that they can provide. But these are the things that are available today from Azure official, Azure OpenAI samples.
Any other questions, folks?
Please
Thank you very
note,
much. Great.
Azure OpenAI data means chatting your data with your data that's only accessible to you, plus making a secure deployment. So those two need to be there to make sure you are only talking on a secure basis as well as chatting with your data. So that's what I covered today in the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you
Alrighty.
very much. Thank you for um, excellent presentation and demo. Thanks, Kumar. Thank you everyone for joining, and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and have a great weekend.